In our previous Go Gardening sessions, we've talked to you about how to inventory what you have, how to figure out what you want, how to create some conceptual what if, shoot the moon sorts of ideas. It's now time to figure out exactly where some of those elements that really will make your landscape yours go into the landscape. Our tendency as people, if we're plants people, is to move immediately to let's go pick out the plants. But let's take a step back and figure out, now that you know what you want and you need, you've got to figure out where the hardscape elements go. Think of this as circulation systems and as nodes or gathering places, just like you would if you were living in town. You have to use a street or a sidewalk to get to where you're going, and then there is some sort of a feature when you get there. So the hardscape elements can be designed and placed in your landscape in a multitude of ways. People tend to think very rigidly about those sidewalks and those patios, the sidewalk at the street, of course, which typically cannot be changed, but the place where your sidewalk hits that one can. So this is actually exactly the same layout of property. The doors are in the same place, the driveway is in the same place, and if you look at what has happened here, we have 4 different iterations of how to do something as simple as get to the front door, and in a couple of instances, not only get to the front door on a sidewalk of some sort, but to get from the driveway. So we can come from the drive straight into a big patio. We can come in a curvilinear fashion with what is probably some stepping stones or a different kind of material. We can come very close to the driveway with a patio, or we can come kind of straight in a more traditional way. So think about not only the getting to one point from another on a walkable surface in the instance of a residential property, even the driveway. If you've got a bigger property and you have room to curve that drive, narrow it a little bit, figure out where the parking goes, maybe use a dual use of the drive surface if you have company so that it does become sort of an extension of a patio. You also do exactly the same thing on the side yard and in the backyard. So many people really place all of their hardscape elements, patios, fire pits, and so forth, in the backyard. And yet if you're in a neighborhood where you're really good with your neighbors, or you want to be, having even a small element in the front where you can place a couple of chairs, you could have containers, you could have a little tiny table where you could go sit and have your coffee. Those really enhance the experience for your own landscape. They also give you some options so that, you know, depending on where those trees are, depending on how hot it is, or if the wind is blowing, if you want more privacy or less, you have the capability of moving from the front to the back or the back to the front, again, in a method that works for you, either on a very solid hardscape element, very clean, clear path, or one that is a little bit more meandering and a little bit more garden-like. So the true elements that you have to think about are: where are you starting, where are you going, how are you going to get there, and what are you going to do when you do get there, on what kind of a surface. So we'll be talking a little bit later on in this series about, okay, you've figured out where you're going, now we're going to figure out what are those materials that you get to work with.